The Prem season is over, and as we know, there have been so many bad and good predictions. Today, we are going to go through them all and see just how badly we got on. Let's get things kicked off.
Right, here we have it, and well, the rules are fairly simple, I believe. It's 1 point for every position you're wrong. So, for example, here at the bottom, me and Jordan have Ipswich with 1 point because they actually came 19th and not 20th. It's as simple as that. So, if you have a team that was you picked first, they finished 10th, that's 9 points difference. Simple as that. So, here we split out to the relegation. And there's some shocking takes and one very good take. I think me and Reece should start with our shocking take. Brentford, 8 points for me and Reece, which is quite brutal in this. I think I had it where I just thought a Premier League team, current Premier League team, would go down. And to be honest, it was a few names that were coming up, but I thought Brentford would. But they were brilliant, to be honest. So it is a deserved 8 pointer because of how bad my decision was.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I don't think Ivan Toney was going to be a big loss to them, but I just felt they were going to run out of steam. How wrong I was.
Absolutely. And look, we got our first sort of correct decision, Jordan. Leicester coming
Sorry.
18th. I didn't have him in the bottom three, and Reece had him bottom. So starting off well there for you.
Yeah, dream start. All three teams to go down. Obviously, Ipswich, Southampton, a little bit annoying, but I'll take that for a start all day.
Absolutely. On to the mid tables. Now, obviously, this is from 7th to 17th, so it's quite a lot to take in. I've tried to highlight in sort of a bit bolder colours where people have gone massively wrong or massively right. It just seems to be Reece, really. Me and Jordan have had some stinkers in here, but Reece, Nottingham Forest, 17th, and they came 7th. So should be, if you flip this table around, it would be perfect, Reece.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought they'd be good defensively. That's what would stop them going down, and they were good defensively. Obviously, I don't think many of us predicted them to be so good in attack. So I think, yeah, I have to take the L on that one. I mean, they eventually felted off at the end, but I can imagine I'm not alone in thinking that they were going to hover around this position in the table.
No,
Yeah, I mean, well, we did the Forest episode early in the season, but I mean, look, we've all got Reece obviously looks the worst there, but we've all got it pretty wrong with Forest. And look, even the most optimistic Nottingham Forest fan surely would not have predicted what happened this season. So yeah, we look poor on that one, but I think most people would have been in the same boat personally.
well, they sort of only struggled to sort of survive last year. Maybe not struggled, but they were near the bottom last year. So I think it's not that bad of a call, to be honest, to have them so low again. Like I had them 15th, obviously, and Jordan 13th. It is one where it's just slightly like they were the surprise team of the year. Is how I think you got to say it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Reece,
I think
let's give you a bit of positivity. You got two exactly right
Oh
in
no.
Wolves and in Everton.
Yeah, it's a small price to pay, and I've not done bad with Fulham either, or Villa or Palace by the looks of it. So I look like I've clawed back some credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan's numbers, yours just look all over the place, and obviously your biggest error is Tottenham Hotspur.
yeah. Well, it's weird because I put them eighth, which is I would say is them having not a great season. And I remember thinking, at some point now, because the Prem is so competitive, there's going to be a big team that like not every big team can have a good season. But I mean, what happened is to finish 17, it's just ridiculous. Like it is absolutely unfathomable that they were that low. Um, but yeah, I mean, minus 9 points. I feel like that's harsh, even though like this. Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. It's a weird one because I was thinking they were going to have a bad season, but eighth in compared to what happened is it's just night and day. So yeah, tough one to take on that. Um,
Well, the
but
difference is, George, you got to remember, you don't see Spurs' name in mine or Reese's list. So
that's true.
it was your worst one, but me and Reese seem to have gone even worse on that. Another one of note that sort of you two don't have that I do is Man United. Still, that was an 8 pointer for me, considering I thought they wouldn't get, Champions League or Europa League spots. And that's still a punishing score of 8, thinking they wouldn't do too well. I thought Ten Hag would be sacked because I didn't think he'd do particularly well. And I was kind of right. But once
Yeah,
again, like Spurs, just not that bad. Just not that bad.
I think the only one I noticed as well, where I think we've all been consistent in what we thought was West Ham. We've all got -5 and -4 respectively, and we all had them top half. A new manager with some great signings. So I think West Ham probably out of all these teams, the reverse, the real disappointment. Not shock, but just underwhelming based on what we thought. I mean, West Ham fans, let us know your thoughts in the comments, but it just feels like there could have been and should have been more from you this season. Um, so we'll see in our predictions for next season, but just really underwhelming.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's definitely a disappointing season from West Ham fans. The summer, when they were making their signings, people were like, "Yeah, they're doing really well in the in the summer window," and I think that's probably why we had them top table. But yeah, disappointing season. I think their fans were just like, there was not many positives. I think the only positive was Bowen was still pretty good, but the rest of the team just all sort of fell off. Like Paquetá was nowhere to be seen pretty much. Kudos wasn't doing too great either. So yeah, I think West Ham. Well, you got to see them under Potter how they do in the summer, because yeah, definitely disappointing though.
yeah, I think the only other, to be honest, the only other takeaway from me on this is the position I had Chelsea in. Because I said, a lot of people have forgot this, where we said in the summer, and we'll get on to where you guys put us, but it could have been one of those crazy seasons where, we were all getting mocked at the start of the season. We had players coming in and out. We had a new manager that's not proven in the Prem. So, you know, seventh felt harsh, but actually, we could have, we all said, I think at the time, Chelsea was so unpredictable and could have finished anywhere. But I think people forget this. Like, I thought we'd finish seventh and we finished fourth. Like, people need to understand we have had a good season.
Well, it did come down to
Like,
the final day where you could have finished seventh.
well, yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, that is
So
true.
it's not that like your prediction isn't that bad considering on the final day, if you lost to Forest, I think you would have finished seventh. So you would.
Yeah,
So
So
well,
that is
you're happy your prediction was wrong. Let's be honest.
absolutely.
Right, I'll move on to the top six then, and we have some
Oh,
terrible scores here. Oh, absolutely atrocious. Let's start with the we'll go with the top. Let's not go all negative straight away. All three of us had City to win. Even though we'd won four in a row, I think we just didn't want to. I think we were all too scared to put someone else top. I think my point of view is I've got my little bit of bias in there, so I'm going to put City top. Reece doesn't believe Arteta. That's why he had him third. And then Liverpool, we didn't know what it was going to be like under Slot. So I
I
don't think
bigged
it's
up
an
Slot
awful
to be
prediction.
fair.
What's that?
I bigged up Slot to be fair, so I am pretty happy that at least I got second with him.
Yeah, like we just didn't. You just didn't know though, did you? There was still that touch of what could happen, and they didn't make many signings in the summer. So I'm not surprised that sort of we didn't have them winning the league, because I think even Liverpool fans would have been like, we've signed no one in the summer, got a new manager. What is going to happen?
Yeah, there was a lot of negativity, and Liverpool fans will probably, not admit that now. But there was a lot of pressure on the board. The Chiesa signing felt like a token gesture. We got to remember that new manager, midfield, who were, there was big question marks over that midfield. Um, So we can't remember that. No, I don't think many Liverpool fans, as you said to your point, would have genuinely predicted them first. I think they would have all gone, "We're happy with the top four." So what they've pulled off is pretty spectacular. We've got to say, as I said, no signings. The midfield has really stepped up very quickly. But even the most biased Liverpool fan, I don't think would have put them first personally.
Yeah, definitely. I think I do remember saying in the sort of video was I did I think I said it to someone else as well. It's like I didn't think City were going to win the league, but I was also like I don't think Arsenal are, but I just don't back any. I can't back anyone else.
That was the same for me. When you look at the season before, you saw a slowdown in City and you thought, okay, maybe they've not got that steam ahead of them that they needed, but I don't think Arsenal were good enough to beat them. So realistically, it have to be Liverpool, but I thought Liverpool wouldn't have that edge to do it, but I thought they might run City pretty close.
Yeah, and
So
well, they won it at Cantor, didn't they? Liverpool. Let's be honest. City definitely weren't on it. Arsenal sort of fell away towards the end when they tried to concentrate more on the Champions League when they knew they weren't going to win the league. They dropped some silly points there. So yeah, but all three of us had the right top three, but only me and Jordan had Arsenal in second because we know second again, LA, they've got their song in that really.
Huh. Easy one that. Death taxes and Arsenal coming second.
they almost dropped to third at one stage. I think Newcastle were hot on the heels, weren't they? It was just when Arsenal beat Newcastle, I think that gave them that daylight, didn't it?
Yeah, it was the Newcastle game because Newcastle were 2 points behind them at that point. So yeah, could have been a big one. Now I think we need to talk on me and Reece putting Spurs in the top six. I know we've touched on it, but Jesus, like how bad they've been in the league.
I don't think any of us expected such a decline. Like the injuries did impact it. Not just injuries, but they didn't have strength and depth. That was what exposed things even worse. So when a player was injured, the fact they had to rely on a bunch of very young players, like the pressure on the likes of Archie Gray were very unreasonable, but he had no choice. That's the issue. Because if we look at them on their day, Spurs, when they got a fully fit side, they are capable of being where they should have been, which is there in the top six.
Well, that's it.
But
Even
in when you
the season before, they finished fifth, so it shows they like. This is why I don't think it's such a bad prediction. Obviously, Jordan said a bit of a drop off, but it's so tight at the top. You could easily have them. You could have easily had them fifth, eighth, sort of in between, kind of. You didn't have them winning the title. Don't get me wrong, but it was such a tight pack. You thought, and it did turn out to be a massively tight pack in the end.
they play this rock and roll football, don't they, where you're going to score loads but concede loads. When you've got injuries, you're not really going to score loads, are you? You're going to concede loads, and that was their Achilles heel when that style of football was never going to work. So unfortunately, it meant to this absolute disaster.
It's
Yeah,
just a lack of backup plan, to be honest. I just think, there was a nice, exciting style of football. It got figured out pretty quickly, and they just didn't adapt. And you can throw the injuries as an excuse, but every team has had their injuries, right? It just doesn't excuse you being bottom half of the table or 17th. It doesn't wash. But yeah, as we
I,
know, their season was saved.
yeah. I think Spurs fans don't. Well, I think they do care, but they don't care that they got because they got the trophy and they're playing Champions League football. Don't forget. So it's kind of their mission would have been let's get Champions League football for next season, and it would have been box ticked, just in the probably the weirdest way possible. I think we lastly before we come up to the scores, you two having United in the top six, big errors in that.
Yeah, I mean Reece has definitely got to explain himself more than me, putting him in the Champions League spots. But for me, I really, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like we talk about young squads and being too inexperienced, and we talk about the need for experience. And United have a mix of a bit of both. and they had a new manager who obviously we know how the season panned out. Obviously, in the end, we didn't know that at the time, of course, but they'd just come off the back of beating City, winning the FA Cup. It felt like they could consolidate around the European places. So again, yeah, I kind of stand by what I said based on what we saw at the start of the season. But what we've seen, the drop off has been just it doesn't make sense. You can't get your head around it. And maybe the FA Cup win papered over cracks and pulled the wool over our eyes. But 9 places difference is just unfathomable. You can't know. Again, no one could have predicted. Even saying Man United had a bad season. This was kind of me saying they had a bad season, putting them sixth, and it's mental.
You had 9, I had 11. Um, it wasn't unfeasible. I think the issue with United is every year's been a false dawn. You look at the transfers they make, the money they spend, and you think to spend that kind of money, you got to be around there. The performance they put into the FA Cup final, I thought if you can get a performance out of them now like that, they're in good stead because when it comes to that moment, they can get it over the line. And they didn't. The uncertainty came in of whether they're going to stick or twist. Even though they were going to look like they were going to sack Eric Ten Hag, they kept him and backed him, which they didn't seem to want him anyway. So that was a bit confusing. And then it looked like that was it. Once everyone seemed to have doubts over the coach, everyone was sort of it was like, well, what's the point? And I didn't really think much of the Xerxes signing at the time, and I just thought, okay, what are they doing here? And all of a sudden, it just got worse and worse and worse, and they just couldn't claw out of it. And I think again, it's just another one of those false dawns that we should have expected more from them. And it again, they could have saved their season with the Europa League win, but they put in that performance that pretty much has summed up probably the last couple of years at least.
Yeah, I think you got to look like United and Spurs were going to be the ones that I think anyone on YouTube who's done also the predictions as well, they're going to be the killers in their sort of point scoring. And to be honest, it is sort of if you look at the squads of both Spurs and United, they should be coming 15th and 17th. So the fact that we're predicting, much higher up, I know we've got to sort of go. We were massively wrong. All three of us, we know we're massively wrong on that. But it's very hard to predict that back in August before the football starts. But let's get on to see who's won. Interesting fact before we announce the winner. Reece has won one before. I won last year and Jordan hasn't won one yet. Is that about to change?
Come on.
Oh, it is. Jordan wins quite comfortably. So
Yes.
we've all won one now. So next year someone is going to be on top. I think you needed that, Jordan, after the Christmas quiz. You needed,
So
you
I
needed
got
to win.
I got shafted on the Christmas quiz, but I'm back where I belong. Number one. Where's my trophy? That's all I'm saying.
Well,
In
we
the
can send
post.
that in a post like we had
Actually,
last week
wait.
with the awards
Actually,
ceremony.
I've got a football trophy. There you go. There it is. I'll
Football
claim that
trophy.
as the winner's trophy.
Move it around each year.
Yeah, yeah.
I've noticed what
Um,
cost me is those absolutely. I got three red lines, didn't I?
Yeah.
They what cost me. Everything else was relatively close. I probably would have come quite comfortable if I'd have got them closer. But I suppose the three I got wrong were three that many people would have got wrong. That's me trying to justify
Yeah,
myself.
you had 3 above 10, which is huge, huge score on that, really.
I should have just gone with my head. Like I thought all three teams that came up might go straight down again, but I tried to give some hope to the league that that's not going to happen, and it happened again.
Well, we'll
So
see if you learn from your mistakes in our next prediction for
I'm
next
so
year.
torn on it. I am so torn on it already. You
I
have no
need to, I
idea.
need, I need to see the transfers before then.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that is all we have time for this week. But of course, we will be doing our new season version of this. So stay tuned. Make sure you are putting in the comments, obviously, your thoughts as well. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.